All right, we are back with another recap. Real Housewives in New York City, season number 14, episode number 12, Well Heeled. I'm excited because the ladies are back from their vacation, which in my opinion was a little bit long. Sure, it was a beautiful 4 episode Anguilla vacation, and stuff did happen, and they got through it. But when I watched this show, for me personally, I always wanted to be about New York City, the pounding the pavement, the career stuff, the relationship stuff. I always tell you, I grew up in Southern California, but for me, New York was always that girl. New York City is a place that I've lived in on and off for about 7 years, and it just, to me, kind of never disappoints. It's always new. It's always, as Jessel will say, up and coming. We'll get right into the episode, and we'll do a quick recap today, just talking about some of the things. I was very excited to see some stuff that felt memorable or familiar to me, but I'll get there. First thing, we've got Jessel and Paavit, and the universal theme that's going through everyone's conversations is, how was the vacation and what's next? Well, for Jessel and Paavit, it's, okay, let's plan this staycation, which this is something we have been waiting for a payoff for a couple of I'm trying to think of it in episode wise, but in real time, this has got to be like 2 months in the making, because the filming it's been going along for a while. And then there was the Christmas holiday and the New Year's holiday. I think the next episode, we look at them having Valentine's Days on the way. So this payoff is actually very exciting. Some funny notes with Paavit and Jessel, because whenever they're together, it is a good scene as they're getting ready for the staycation. Jessel telling, in the confessional, saying, basically, I don't want to hear any complaints, Paavit, about you taking care of the kids, because I carried them for 9 months. So I think I should have at least 9 months of my own time. I know she's just like being funny, but it sets up the episode because we're going to see a second time where they are together. Now, this got a little bit more on the awkward space, if you ask me, because it's like we're waiting for this whole thing, and Jessel's like, oh, okay, well, I went shopping with Brynn, so it's always going to be flirty and naughty and fun. And while that was happening, I got some lingerie, I got some toys, but for whatever reason, he, we don't want to judge Paavit, and then we of course know that he's going to be going away for a little bit, and what that's going to be, we will find out. But like, I just think that it might be some uncomfortability with showing romantic emotion on camera. It's already a little bit weird and awkward. He always kind of defers to like, oh, this is about, having kids, twins, and there's a tax where you don't get to have, intimacy with your wife. And it just is so awkward. But I got to say, what isn't awkward is that darn Jessel looking so good in the lingerie. She looked so good. I mean, Jessel is like, she does give fashion on a lot of situations, both in this little flirty, awkward romance situation. When they were at the healing session, I thought the fashion was doing it as well. She's really great for that. Let's move on to Brynn with JENNA LYONS at Henrietta Hudson, which, by the way, I will tell you, I've been there 2 times. Okay, so one time, it's funny, I'm looking at some of my past jobs and they've all been in that area. So one time when I was freelancing, I was working as a doorman concierge. I think I've told you that before. And I was working one of these night shifts, and I was like, oh, let me like see what's local. I know I'm sort of near Christopher Street. Let me hit a gay bar or whatever. So I just like put it in the phone. I was new to New York at the time. And so that's where I chose to go. But I was like, in there, and there was like, why is he here? Kind of a vibe. So I didn't really understand right away, but then I learned quickly. I'm like, oh, it's okay, it's a lesbian bar, no problem. And I still had fun, and then I went back to my job, because again, doorman concierge overnight. My break was at like maybe 1:30 a.m. or something like that, and that's the bar that was really close to where I was working. Which again, like I said, there's a couple of jobs that I've worked that have been right in that area. In fact, the background that you see behind me, it was when I was working producing a podcast for VH1, where the office was down there as well. So I kind of know that area pretty well. It's like, it's right there in Hudson, kind of a beautiful area. And then the second time I went for World Pride with my friend Marcy, and we, of course, went everywhere, but one of the stops we had was at Henrietta Hudson. And I'm going to tell you, my friend Marcy, she always had that good game. She had that game that was like Brynn. She always found her something. She always found her a bad one. And so it kind of reminded me of that, just being in there, being with my homegirl. at Henrietta Hudson, and she's like, she didn't need a Brynn. She didn't need a wing person. Though I was there to support, and then we went everywhere else. We went by Stonewall and all these things. This was World Pride. Like, this was like the event, but anyways, it was nice to see Jenna in this situation. And even more than that, it's like we're seeing a full story with Jenna. We're seeing, I don't really want to talk about my relationship, is what she was saying at the very beginning of the episode. And then as the episode went on, season, at the very beginning of the season, she's like, I don't really want to talk about it. As we get to Erin and Abe's vow renewal, we're learning that, like, essentially that didn't work. And then she's still kind of reserved, but like, it's funny because in real time, in terms of what we're seeing on social media, she's, things are going good and it's exciting. So it's really fun to see where she is currently. And she hasn't really done a Watch What Happens Live episode outside of the one where all of them were together. So she hasn't like sat in the chair by herself. So we're seeing this like two different sides. We're seeing this badass that's like, hitting all these Fashion Week events or whatnot, and we know that she's so such credibility within the industry and is in love, like I'm saying. But then we're seeing like, oh, okay, those stages where you're awkward and weird and you need like a Brynn with you, because Brynn really knew how to like get her to have fun. I mean, here's the thing about Jenna and dating, and I'm gonna tell you, like, I don't have what is it called, like fear of missing out, or like the I mean, for the most part, everyone does have little jealousy in them. And what I'm saying is, I'm not jealous of anything, but I am kind of I like Jenna in the dating scenario because though she's nervous, you're Jenna mother effing Lyons. And it's like, so I would imagine Brynn being the wing person, being the perfect wing woman is wonderful, but like, you're also like, here's what I like, that's quality product. That's a quality product right there. So the whole scene was fun. Brynn saying, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna write the phone number. You're gonna. I don't know. Did she say give her hand a kiss, and then you're gonna walk away because you always want them yearning for more. It just, to me, Brynn in this episode was more like hosting a show. She was very like aware of the camera. I felt like everything we were seeing before was too in resemblance of like Leah when she used to be on the show, and Leah would be like more on shock value, which is probably part of Brynn's personality too. But I also really was like, okay, that could be part of your personality, but now we're seeing a different side of it because everything should be nuanced. Everything should be peaks and valleys, ups and downs, and erotic, and then nervous, and then naughty, like even feeling Brynn is what gets me to kind of like come to that conclusion. And I think she kind of is learning to play it a little bit better for the camera now. I thought the girl was so beautiful that was flirting with Jenna, and you're just like, ooh, what's going to happen? So I thought it was really cool. And I got to tell you, the impact also that Jenna Lyons has in terms of like having that, I mean, in some ways, the Real Housewives, other franchises, they have had different levels of like women exploring or whatnot, but never like, well, and I guess Julia from Miami, but we're seeing it. We're seeing the actual like dating. We're seeing the, what it's like being single of a certain age. And I really enjoy seeing that. We did an episode, one of my good friends, colleagues, we did one of the early Real Housewives of New York recaps. And it was the one where Jenna was talking about being outed and some of those situations or whatnot. And it really opened up such relatability for our own stories. You know what I mean? And we'll take a look at that clip right here. We'll get to Ubah and the healing in a moment. We'll get to Brynn, who loves The Economist and all these things. And we'll get to the epic who's going to be later for lunch, Sai versus Jessel situation. But I wanted to stop down, and this is the bulk of what today's episode is going to be, is just simply, while it was fun to watch, there is still an impact where we all can watch this show and see ourselves a little bit in Jenna. You know what I mean? Like, obviously everyone's story is different, but we're all of the community. And even if you're not, you can still share in it. And I thought it was interesting that because Jenna is sharing so much, that it allows us viewers to like channel into memories and experiences that make us feel feel things, you know, and remember things that some might not have been as favorable. So seeing her flirt, knowing where Jenna's at now, and then kind of like having a reference point of like your own story, it's I think that's what's made this show feel fresh and modern. So here is Russell, you could go to his YouTube channel as well, and myself talking about Jenna and the outing that she had to endure when she was at the job, and how it basically just affected and touched each of us. Let's check this out. I just wanted to ask you what you thought of Jenna sharing being outed. You know,
I didn't even know that I wasn't myself.
Did you come out, or is this something that...
Oh, no. That was done for me by the New York Post.
Really? By the Post?
I couldn't really imagine that. I think when you take on a giant job like that, you know, when she was running things at J. Crew, there may be an expectation to kind of know that, you know, with all the success comes a little bit more of a challenge in personal life, let's say. But where I felt really bad for her was that she stated this was all new to her. And Russell, like, yeah, we're excited now. We're, I would say, quite confident in both of our own skin.
Yeah.
But, and I didn't really know you when I was dealing with my coming out experience, but
yeah,
the friends that did, you saw the commercial that we did today. My friend Mark, I remember crying to, oh my gosh, this is such an emotional. And it's like, I just could not imagine her barely getting it and understanding. And then all of a sudden, like being pushed to the front of the room, like make a comment or not. It kind of broke my heart in a way. Am I being too sensitive?
No, I was outed.
You what?
I was outed live.
No, I'm one of your best friends,
air.
and I have no idea of this.
Because I don't ever speak about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's fine. Like, I was out to my immediate friends and my like immediate family. Like, I mean, like there was a handful of people, like my brother, my sisters, my mom knew, right? And then someone I went to junior high school with. Oh my God, like the pool's so small. I'm trying to think about who actually knew, right? So like this was before I knew you. Oh, one of my other friends that I worked with knew, and that was it. It was like a very small, it was a very kind of small, intimate group of people that knew and supported me, and I was trying to find my way as in like how I want to live my life and how I want to, how I wanted to identify. And like I knew how I wanted to identify, but like how I wanted to be perceived, because I wanted to be the truest form of myself. And I'm the type of person that likes to dig deep intellectually and say, this is part of me, this is part of me, this isn't necessarily part of me, but this is part of the LGBTQ community that I relate to. But I'm just different from that, and that's okay. We're all different, right? So I remember being excited, and I went live with someone, and this individual kind of had a personal vendetta against me. And I didn't see it until later on, but they pushed the envelope with me multiple times. You know, like Ronnie, you know, today's Jennifer Lopez's birthday, by the way, because I'm about to bring her
that's
up.
Right. Oh,
Happy
shout
birthday,
out to the
Jenny
queen. And what we always say is,
New York.
though people will try to say, oh, she's this and she's that, and maybe she is stern, but by the way, if you're J-Lo, you might have to be stern.
Absolutely.
You know. So I'll say it like this: happy birthday, J-Lo. I did go see her Madison Square Garden concert for her 50th birthday when she was doing that little tour. And by the way, fun fact, I saw her twice that week because I was at the show where there was the Madison Square Garden blackout. So you would go see it Saturday, and then she popped back up on Sunday. So in reality, I've seen J-Lo in that experience quite a bit. But she is an icon. And if you ever watch the content of Randomly Ronnie Jr. and Russell Ray Silva, because you always need a little R&R, you should know that we live for the queen, Jennifer Lopez.
So going back to J-Lo, right? If anybody asked me until this day, what celebrity would you want to marry? Hands down, J-Lo. Like, hands down, J-Lo. Like, hard worker, beautiful, like, oh my gosh, just like everything that you would want in a spouse. I don't care if you're male or female, like that's everything you want in a spouse. And that's always been my answer. And this person did not like that answer and gave me the prerequisite of what celebrity would you marry. And this is actually kind of hard to talk about, but I'm going into it because this is authentic, right? So, and this relates to Jenna Lyons a lot. So
yeah.
What celebrity would you marry?
That's why I wasn't belittling it all at all. Because while we get into our pride moments, like when you really have to re-speak upon this stuff, it is tough. What'd you ask me?
Well, like this person had said, if you could marry any celebrity, who would it be? And right before I said my answer, they looked at me and said, and it can't be a female. It has to be a male because you're gay, right? And that was live. And I was like, I felt the rage inside of me. But then I also felt, I'm not ashamed of who I am, and I ain't afraid to go up against anybody. So let's do it. So then I chose the person, and then there was nothing to be said after that.
Yeah.
But I was like, how dare you, as an individual, come after me about something that you clearly knew that I was uncomfortable with speaking on camera, which on something we weren't even talking about in general. Like this had nothing, what we were covering
they were being funny on purpose.
Had nothing to do with sexuality at all.
Yeah.
And you came from me. So I understand where she came from. And I also understand the power dynamic of, okay, you want to call me and you want to ask me if I want to confirm? Yeah, let's confirm it and see what happens, right? Because I'm big and because you're not going to take me down regardless. And I feel the same way until this day. When that person challenged me, I was like, you're not going to take me down.
And I don't want to go in like such a tangent because this is like such a great topic we could do on another show. But as it relates to Jenna Lyons, it's like, on one hand, I just said part of becoming the president or whatever her gigantic role at J. Crew was is the risks that are associated with that. For my experience, it was like kind of like I was starting radio. And I was like, climbing up the ladder in that world. And then it was like, I got into that space too, where I was like, oh, shoot, can somebody always pull the rug under me? And I'm not necessarily ready to talk about it now here today. So it's a level of, while everyone makes it so jokey, like, oh, it's an easy thing to get through. Or come on, Jenna. I'm not saying anyone said this, but let's say they said, you really didn't know until you were 40. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she actually didn't. Because where the real challenge is once you associate your professionalism, I think it changes the way you want to, or the way you understand yourself. For instance, if I work just a 9-to-5 job, I guess it's probably not going to be wonderful either. It's always a challenge, but I don't necessarily have my name as a brand attached to what the work is. And so for me within radio, I said, wait a minute, the #1 song right now is Booty, 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 Booty Rockin' Everywhere. You think I'm really going to want to be like, oh yeah, but I want to be Adam Rodriguez. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not going to work within the narrative. So that messed me up forever. And it turned me into a workhorse. I was a 9-day work week type of guy. I worked 9 days a week for like 7 years in a row. Now there's only 7, but I worked 9, gained all the weight. It was a very dark and miserable experience, but coming out on the other side of that is beautiful. And a lot of my experience has to do with, then I lost all the weight, got down to 175 pounds after being 320 pounds, and all of it was connected. And I remember having to, and it sucks to even say, I took a break from my radio push. That's why when I do my channel now, and when I'm ever doing a radio or television thing, like the star that I am on, watch what happens live, virtual caller. No, anytime I do something now, it feels so good, Russell, because I know that experience of like, not being strong enough to say like, this is what it is 100%. So her getting outed was very sad.
And you know what, like Oprah Winfrey said,
she's better for it. Yeah. She's
but like Oprah Winfrey said, being outed was the best thing that ever happened to her because there was no secrets and there was nothing that can come after her. And I feel the same way about Jenna. I feel because she confirmed there was nothing that can come after her. And I feel the same way about the person who challenged me and wanted to out me on live. And I thought to myself, there's no shame now. There's nothing that you can do that is going to hurt me because I have no skeletons in the closet at this point. One
of my best experiences is one of my dear friends who lived in LA, and then she was more of an East Coast girl, so she moves back. I eventually moved to New York after losing all the weight. So I'm in New York as a young 31-year-old dipping and doing. And while I had already come out at around 27, 28, those first couple of years, I was still really quiet about it. And I remember we'd be in our group of friends here in New York as a new New Yorker. And I remember one time my dearest friend, she was like, oh yeah, it came up a conversation to this friend. And I was like, oh my God, I want to meet the people first. I don't want them to like know that I'm gay right off jump. And she's like, and not that she necessarily had any right to say this, but I definitely rock with what she said because she's a dear friend. And she goes, why would you not want people to know you? Like, how are they going to connect with you if they don't know you? Now, I took that as a sign of like, okay, I'm a Southern California boy who's always wanted to live in New York, so I live for this East Coast energy. But that was literally, I've never forgotten that. I'm like, that is so true. And we do it when we broadcast. We're like, you know, oh, well, if we can keep a certain demeanor, not saying we do this, but potentially, if you could keep a certain demeanor, maybe you could be more mass appeal. Well, bitch, I want Adam Rodriguez.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
And so if that's more niche, that's what it's going to be. You know what I mean?
But I'll tell you why this is. It's because society will accept a certain type of gay if you fit this mold. It's like, oh my gosh, we love you, like you're our energy. But if you're a different type and you don't fit the mold that everyone else wants you to fit, you're ostracized and you're alienated, which I feel like is what maybe you dealt with a little bit, and it's what I dealt with a little bit. It's like, I don't fit this mold of what you want me to be. You know what I mean? Like there are things about me that I get talked down to all the time. Like, why do you like sports? Why did you were forced to play sports? No, I wasn't forced to play sports. I like to play sports. There's nothing wrong with that. And now we see all these athletes that are coming out, and it's like, hello, we've been here the whole time. You've just never given us a space to be able to be those individuals because it wasn't good enough for you. You didn't want us to be these individuals in this type of lifestyle. You didn't want us to be athletic. You know, society. It wasn't anybody. It wasn't our peers. It was society that was like, no, you can't be athletic and be gay at the same time. And now we have we have a coach that just came out, right? So I think this is great to learn more about them. I think it's great that you and I were able to deep dive into a conversation because we relate to someone of this new generation. You and I feel like this episode, you and I have connected on a deeper level to an individual castmate with our experience with Jenna Lyons than we've ever connected in any of the seasons that we've covered. So I think that speaks volumes as to what this revamp has done for this next generation that is going to be following Housewives.
Yeah, so there it is. These conversations are relatable in a way that while we've always loved this show, Real Housewives of New York, or all the franchises for that matter, have always been wonderful for us all to sit around, watch the show, talk amongst ourselves over the fun stuff that we see, but never sometimes in a way that we get to really like, you know, have these conversations based on Jenna just being who she is and kind of sharing some stuff. So I think that's really cool. Brynn was a superstar in this episode, which I was not saying earlier in the season, but I feel like she's coming into her own. I mean, everything from the confessional look was the most exquisite. The scene was exquisite. Even if, like in my head, even if she, let me fix the microphone real quick. Even if she can't necessarily spell The Economist, I don't care. And even if she's the most brilliant person, I don't care. Even if this is all an act, I don't care. I loved it so much. And I feel like I'm the type that would also talk like that. Like, I love the books. I love the pages. I like to smell the, like, it's so crazy. And I don't even think the sales clerk was like, what are you talking about? Books with pictures or not pictures? Like, she was just like enthused or whatever. But Brynn was giving us, and we've said this before on recap as we recap these shows, Brynn was really channeling into the full fantasy. And again, exquisite. I have been more critical on some of her other episodes because, again, anytime she gets a little too close to just resembling Leah and just like shock value, it's like a comic, I always say. You don't want to be like resorting to just, you know, vulgar language or bathroom behavior type stuff for your jokes to be funny. You can go there, but you want to go, you know, you want to go through peaks and valleys. And I feel like she's finally getting it, because I was very like, for all the times you'll see on social media where some of the fans of the show will be like, oh, Brynn is mother. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, she's cool. She's all right. She's okay. But no, Brynn was so wonderful this episode. I was really, really into it. Now, it was great, too, because we get to see, as I was saying, the duality. And another thing I thought of, too. The first thing I thought of was, yes, you should always be well read. It's like when John Waters, what was the famous quote John Waters said? If you go home with someone and they don't have, like, you know, a full bookcase or whatnot, you know, you know, don't sleep with them or whatever. Like, I know that wasn't intended, but that is the first thing I thought of, is like, she's giving like romance and flirty and sophistication and like to the to the attribute of what John Waters was basically saying, you know, in that famous quote. Unintentionally or intentionally, this is what I thought. Okay, so now she talks about her grandmother and missing her grandmother, which I gotta say, the years, was it 3 years, is a really interesting time in terms of your grief. Even currently, like I'm struggling with I've been about 3 years with a cousin that was my age, and I feel like just the first year was an experience, and the second was an experience, and the third has just been so challenging. You know, it's that year that is just almost the hardest, that 3.5, where it's like, you know, it's a reality, but it still feels like you have hope inside, and you still have missing of the memories, like, because it wasn't too long ago that you could just get on that phone. And I imagine that's what Brynn was kind of, I don't know, I just really connected to Brynn with that whole, it's been about 3 years, because to me that's always such a pivotal time. I don't want to go on and on about it, but I will say I thought it was cute. She wanted to I guess put some type of you know, celebratory celebrating the life of the grandmother Mimi at Central Park. And that's just, in terms of a grieving process and her sharing that with her brother, I thought it was good, and I thought she really stepped it up. Now, she does get COVID again. She got COVID the first time, so which one is the lie? I think it was the first time, right? Because the first time is when they went to, because it wasn't explained, and she was there a day later. Well, she didn't have COVID, she just got sick. Or did she have COVID? Because this time Ubah's like, nope, we are not going to sneak up on Jessel and Paavit. You've got 5 days of quarantine. So maybe she didn't have COVID the first time when they all went to the Hamptons to Erin's house to have Lay's potato chips and caviar, which is all the rage now. Anyway, I don't know. With Brynn, it's always like, is she telling the truth? Is she telling an imagination? Is she telling a lie? Because she's always like, well, I'm sick, but I don't feel sick. So if you see me out and about, no worries. But then you just don't know with Brynn. Anyway, that's not the point. Let's get to the healing session. Oh, do you want to talk about the couples dinner? Let's talk about the couples dinner, because, you know, I like that it was couples, and I think that's a sexy thing. And I think too many times in life you see people, they get together, they have kids, and then it's just suburb life forever. One time when I was filling in for a friend of mine, she was like a nanny, so I was like babysitting over the weekend, but the kids were they were like 12, 14, something like that. So it was just kind of overseeing the home. Beautiful home. The wife was an architect. It was wonderful. But what I remember is just feeling like, growing up, I never really seen that. It was always like, you know, when people have families, it's just everything's devoted to, like, I don't know, AYSO soccer and Little League and Pop Warner football. And it's just, to me, like, I don't know. I think that's good in terms of what you could give back to your children, to your kids. However, I think at the core, you have to have that love and that intimacy, like Erin's saying, burn within you at all times. And so that's what I liked about it. Now I'm trying to, like, find the ways to word it correctly in terms of what got me into that. Because again, I typically don't like the scenario of, oh, if you're not married or if you don't have kids, you're not as valid as the next person. I never stand for that. I'm always like, you know, specifically with women, you know, getting to a certain age, and if they don't have children, like, what does that mean biologically as a gay man? Like, that's also, biologically, you know, it's you could adopt, and there's always options, but it's like, I never devalue that. No, you're a single person, you're of a certain age, and life is good. You can do what you want to do. Like, modern lifestyles are here, and it's great, etc., etc. But when you can see a positive influence of these two hot couples, I'm into it. I got the popcorn. I'm like, yes, I like it. Okay, so what they talked about was, like, you know, they're getting back from Anguilla, and then they're also talking about, well, you know, Jessel and Paavit, they're going to do a staycation, and it's going to be cool, but, like, could you all imagine not having sex for a year and a half? What would that look like? And so Abe jumps in quickly and is like, well, I'd be sleeping with someone else. So Erin is like, well, I like the candor, but, like, No, no, no. Now here's the one thing, because I'm always so team Erin, right? But now that I'm thinking about it, and I still am team Erin, Erin on one hand is like so free with her conversation. You know, Sai and David were like, no, we're gonna keep it more traditional. Whereas I appreciate everything that Erin was saying. Like, no, if in 10 years it's not hot and steamy, we can maybe bring someone in the bedroom, this, and this, and they're kind of exchanging different ideas. Abe is giving his opinions on what that would look like and his rules, his boundaries. I love to hear it. It was fantastic. Erin is saying she might even bring a gay man into the bedroom. So I'm like, okay, yes, Erin, you better. But here's where I have to go critical to Erin, because that was a fabulous scene. I loved it. Go ahead, Erin. I love the concept of, yes, you have to always have that intimacy with, you know, with your husband. You have to also be that great parent, but you know, you should still remain, you know, you should still prioritize the relationship as well. And being modern is wonderful, and everyone has their own set of rules in this day and age. I don't know necessarily that I would be as comfortable, but like people, you know, it's just not what it used to be. It's as long as the boundaries are set and as long as everyone is okay, it's wonderful. But what got me, and it's only because I always like defend Erin so many times, is that it did make me think, well, you talk so freely and so like cavalier about romance and dating, and we'd bring another person in the bedroom very, very like willy-nilly. It's like that could have Brynn misconstrue that, oh, I could talk flirty with Abe at the vow renewal and Erin won't be mad. It's not going to be a big deal. And then Erin did get mad and it was a big deal. That's where it gets tricky. Once you decide to like be very open with certain things, then if somebody also talks in that same language, what can you do, really? You know. But again, I don't think Erin was at fault. She didn't do anything wrong. It's just something I had seen. Anyways, I thought it was cute. I love to see the couples all together. Sai makes such a great point. It's not the easiest thing to find couples that get along, and it's what I want to see on a show like this. It's young, it's modern, it's fresh. Yes, I miss Dorinda on the TV. I miss Sonia on the TV. I miss Luann on the TV. But even when you would watch those shows towards the end, everyone was just single women of a certain age, just acting kind of a fool. Like that kind of is what the show began to be. But when we saw these two hot couples talking just about life, I was like, I like this. This is the show I want to watch. Okay, now to the healing session. I thought the healing session was wonderful. I particularly don't get tired of them. I get tired of them in the vein of if it's used in a trailer. I don't like them in a trailer. We're going to get centered. We're going to treat each other with kindness. We're going to love one another. And then while they're saying all those things, you get an edit of them screaming at each other. Like, I don't like that edit. There's something that bothers me. It doesn't feel very good. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't want to get into why I don't necessarily like it, but I just don't like it. But in terms of these things, and I think Jenna Lyons said like, oh, what the healing session felt like, it could be a little hokey, but it is valuable. I think the same thing. I think, you know, you hear the concepts of grounding, and, you know, I always feel like I need to get like fresh air. I always feel like I need to get centered. I love all of that. Does it play as wonderfully on TV? Not all the time. It's kind of like, and Sai's daughter in the episode did the little ASMR. I used to hate the ASMR on the, like, I felt like ASMR in real human experience is wonderful, but once it gets packaged up and filmed and like distributed, it like loses its authenticity, right? So I love the healing session, and I feel like it's something I would like to do a sound bath. I'm like into all of those things, very much so actually. But on the show, it didn't bother me. I know some people on social media were like, oh God, one of these again. I don't know. I'm okay with it. It got a little more expression within Ubah, you know, getting to really go through it, and, you know, her grieving process also with her mother, you know, and even bringing the girls together. I feel like on some level, no one really addressed anything, but everyone was definitely there in the vein of, this is because there was a falling out in Anguilla. We need to find a way to come back together. And have that bond and that sisterhood. And though nothing was really spoken, I thought Erin could have stepped up in that moment and said, hey, you know, here, extending an olive branch, you know, should we get coffee or whatever? But maybe that would make it feel redundant. Something, I don't know. Either way, I thought by calling this get together, Ubah, I thought it really was a smart thing. And then out of the blue, Jessel's like, hey, Sai, let's have lunch, which Sai's like, I'm not really interested, but we'll get to that point. But let's talk real quickly about Sai with her daughter. You know, a lot of chatter has been going on, and you know, Sai has been one of these characters on the show that I'm just like, she's a real human person, but like on the character of there's a lot of bad apples, but I'm the baddest of the bunch. I'm like, ooh, yes, every episode. But I don't know. I kind of like this episode. And yes, although it is becoming the same thing, you know, even that, like you're trying to talk to your daughter about like, wow, like these dreams that you want to become an actress, you want to have an agent, you want to have a manager. We couldn't so much as do anything but like go from couch to couch. Like, and even the daughter just like tuning her out and like going to the ASMR. I could see how when you speak and you get dismissed like that, especially for somebody like Sai that doesn't want to open up, it could be challenging. It still was a cute scene with her daughter, and it really ultimately, in my mind, opened up the concept of this whole thing is based on Scout the City, you know, is where the product or you know, the brand was created. And even when you knew that, I mean, I hadn't followed her prior. I only followed her when when Sai got on Real Housewives of New York. But it really, what I liked about it is because the whole time you're thinking, oh, what a great brand. But like, you also never know necessarily if Sai's daughter wants to be in the limelight, or, you know, if she wants to be in Broadway musicals and stuff of that nature. And now hearing that ballet and dance and tap and jazz and all these things are important to her, the daughter, and how this is a great opportunity for Sai to get her, you know, the next level, you know, by utilizing this show. It just really gets me excited for Sai. Sai has said that she has a problem with being sentimental in general. So she came on the show with not an agenda, but a clear-cut direction of what she wanted to do and where she wanted to go. And it did make me feel very comfortable that like her daughter is into this, and like, wow, what a great experience that like her whole family is in on the same dream. Her life when she grew up was completely different. And now she's got a loving husband who is the one who's basically the caretaker while she could go pursue her career. And we know that at least from Scout the City, the daughter wants to go be in all of these productions and really flourish in that world. I like that. I really thought it was a way to connect a little bit better with Sai. Somebody who I've been like on and off, like I always say there's 4 characters that I really like on this show: Erin, Jessel, Jenna, and Ubah. And the 2 that are always like on the fence, but they've been really hitting home runs lately. Like once they got back to New York, things changed. Maybe it was that time away. It was needed. But Brynn and Sai are really stepping into it in a good way. I like it. So let's talk about the the ladies who lunch late. Sai shows up 20 minutes late, but it turns out Jessel shows up even later. Now, what are your feelings on all this? I really don't think Jessel was doing anything wrong, but I also don't think Sai was doing anything wrong. You know, I like the concept. Oh, and going back to Sai at the healing, when they were doing the healing sound bath or whatnot. What are your thoughts on, we have to go back, we have to like, you know, like break down to the core? I feel like sometimes you do want to get through. You do. And now she said something that was a little funny. She said, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, therefore I don't got to go there. I don't think it's about, because it would even be like therapy. I don't think you go to therapy because something is wrong. I think you go to therapy even when things are wonderful. Like, it's about assessing everything that's going on in your world and how to assess it and how to thrive within. But there's a part of me that is very like, if I'm going to give you, like she does reference at the end of the ladies who lunch late, that if I'm struggling to be sentimental and it happened once, why do we have to keep on? I think sometimes people feel like because they break down all the time, and I break down all the time too, so there's no issue. But like, if I don't want to, don't tell me I need to, or don't tell me I need to speak to somebody about an issue. When I'm telling you, like, this is a problem, we will get through it, boom and boom. But like, the way you would process a thing doesn't mean it's the way I would process a thing. I'm really going up to bat for Sai today. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. Now this doesn't mean I'm like, oh, Sai was right and Jessel was wrong. Jessel was not wrong by saying, first of all, let's go to the lunch. She was fashionably late. She was the star that she is. I guess that is a little bit rude to call the lunch and then show up 40 minutes late. Jessel, you can't do that under no circumstance. But then she comes in with that wonderful line. But Sai does too. Sai's like, I'm agitated. I am irritated, which I stand for that too. I'm like, yeah, let the person know. Because a lot of times in life, we are very passive aggressive, and I hate that shit. You know, say, I have been sitting here. What is up? You know, and Sai did that. So Sai was speaking for me in that manner. But then Jessel's so goofy, and Jessel says, oh, well, it's Friday. This is practically the weekend anyway. Jessel is in her own world. I just love it so much. Now, Jessel's trying to explain, this is never what I wanted to do. I never wanted to come into my experience versus somebody else's experience. I was just trying to connect. And when I was doing an episode recently, I did an episode maybe 2 episodes ago with Courtney, a friend of mine, Courtney Stewart. And she was saying something that was so magnificent, because I totally think this is what was happening. And I've done it too. Somebody will tell you something and you accidentally, you hear them for sure, but then you ingest a story that made you feel a similar way. Your whole goal, and I'm only calling myself out too, because there's always things that I can learn from. Your whole goal is just to connect. Now I don't remember the exact quote, but Courtney said something along those lines, which made me think, yeah, Jessel's not trying to jump in there and say, well, this happened to you. Guess what? This happened to me. I don't necessarily think Sai thinks that. However, Sai really is dismissive of, you know, what's your real story? And it's like, I don't think Jessel's even trying to give anything other than, oh, well, I hear this aspect that had happened to you. I relate in this way, completely different, but in this way. So anyways, they kind of get through it, but then all of a sudden, and again, I was not siding with either of them. It was like just a wonderful scene for me. Sai is like, don't bring up. Well, here's the thing that really got me. Jessel says, it's hard for me to talk to you all because you do stand with such an opinion of what I say. But beyond that, like within my family, we don't talk. Which that's something you do got to allow people to have that part of their experience. Like a lot of people just don't go to these certain emotions, you know, and if they're going to try, I know sometimes it's like, oh, well, Jessel will just cry. So we got to like feel sorry for her, or tear up rather. But I do think maybe she comes from an experience where she doesn't get to use these words and get there. And all she's simply trying to do. And yes, she maybe didn't have to do it where she said, Sai, you know, you're, you know, the thing with your mother and what she struggled. It made me think of my uncle. I could see how Sai would be like, don't ever, don't fix your mouth to say something that is my thing and then add on to it. You know, you could add on to it whenever, you could bring it up whenever, but like, you know, don't try to take me there. And I don't think Jessel was. That's why I said I love the scene. Nobody was mad. Even the edit, by the way. In the trailer or the next on from last episode, it looked like it was going to be so like, I don't care, I gotta go. And I don't think it was. I think Sai was very, you know, stoic, which I love on this show. But I don't think she was being rude. She was just like, listen, girl, you were 40 minutes late. I still got to go to work. These are 2 different stories, but no issue. Have a good one. And I personally don't think that's what rude is. I think we all have different interpretations of what rude is. Anyway, it was a great episode and I personally enjoyed it. I wanted to tell you, actually, I'll save it for the next episode. This has been Real Housewives of New York, season 14, episode number 12. We are rounding out the season. This is what I want to see. This, to me, is almost better than them going to the Hamptons and having some arguments, going to Anguilla and barely learning each other. You know, there was this whole thing when the show started, was like, oh, this group of girls knows each other, but it's like they don't really know each other. And so we have four episodes in Anguilla where they're like, they don't really know each other, but then they're arguing over things, and then it's like escalating. And I don't know. This was the episode for me. I don't know. I might be completely on my own with that, but I loved everything about this. I loved, Ubah in the bath, talking to Brynn. I mean, it just really gave lifestyle. The only thing that could have been even better was if you added some like some fashion, or how they go shopping or whatnot, something of that that aspect. Nonetheless, it was wonderful. I love how Jessel said we booked this room for the staycation, which, by the way, the staycation should be like 3 days, but okay, just do 1 day. Oh, and Jessel says, yep, it was like the Mojave down there, and we had the sex. And I got to agree with Sai. I'm like, but did you, girl? Okay, fine. We won't ask you about it again. It didn't seem like she, it didn't seem like it really happened, which is none of our business, really. It's none of our business. But what I did get from that is that darn Jessel. She is a PR publicist, marketing maven in everything she does. I think that's why she talks the way she does. Even when Sai was like, oh, you go from A to B to C to D and you end up over here. Like, I feel like I'm like that too. But also, I think because she's a publicist, she's like PRing her entire experience and her whole life. And she's very like creating it in that way. But she says, oh yeah, we're going to go here. Basically the Flatiron, you know what I mean? Which she called it NoMad. And I guess I've heard, living in New York, I guess I've heard it being called that kind of, but it's Flatiron. You're going to the Flatiron. You're going by Madison Square Park. Like, come on. I'm going to NoMad, which is fine. But you said, I don't know if Tribeca is hot. Like, come on. Jessel, come on. You're our favorite. You are sitting next to Andy at the reunion, and you deserved it, and you earned it, and you are our queen. But now you suddenly know NoMad. You didn't know Tribeca was hot, but you know NoMad. Who are you, girl? It's so wonderful. It's so good. It is so good. That's the end of the reunion. I mean, that's the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Real quick, we got a message from Mark, a colleague of mine who is like a creative director on the podcast series here. Let's hear what he has to say, and then we'll come right back.
Well, hello there. Thank you for watching and supporting the show with my good friend, Randomly Ronnie Jr. Who the hell am I? Great question. My name is Mark Rodriguez with Mastermind Media, and I wanted to take just a moment of your time to let you know about all the other incredible things this guy, Randomly Ronnie Jr. has going on. But first, before we get into that, please comment, like, and subscribe. That is how he grows here on these channels. But one channel you probably don't know about is patreon.com/Randomly Ronnie Jr., where he's got a bunch more exclusive content. So please check that out. But speaking of YouTube, let's go back to YouTube for a second. He's got this hashtag Randomly with Ronnie Jr. and it shows all of his stuff in his days in radio from back in the day, all the way up to present day, and his new interviews, podcasts, just videos across the board. So please check that out, because when you think about content creators, there's millions of content creators, but there's only one, Randomly Ronnie Jr. Let's get back into the show.
All right, so there you go. Yes. Support. Now, I did have one other thing to get to, but I'm not going to get to it this episode. I will wait till the next one or drop it later in the week. We're up to like 1,000 episodes on hashtag Randomly with Ronnie Jr., so that's exciting. And the channel itself is like almost at 900. But the point is, I got something to do after, and I'll get to that maybe on the next episode. But I did want to say that we're hearing, in terms of a Jenna Lyons quote, how she doesn't want to be defined by Real Housewives of New York. Now, I don't know what everyone's reaction is, because I don't spend a lot of time. I mean, I've been trying to limit it actually quite a bit. Instagram and Twitter and Threads, it's too much for my sanity. Says no. I give it up on the podcast. I give it up on YouTube. Solid opinions, and I go for mine. But I don't really care about what everyone thinks. But her saying, I don't want this to be a defining moment, I hope that people took that the right way. I feel like I was totally behind that commentary that she had, because the problem has always been, oh, well, Real Housewives of Atlanta, you know, Kenya Moore is on the same show with Portia Williams. Therefore, they are the same. They are not the same. Kenya is that girl. Portia has done stuff with the platform, no problem. And I'm not saying that Jenna was trying to elevate herself, but it was to be known that this is not just what I do. And I don't think Jenna was saying it in a negative way. I'm just wondering if people took it in a negative way. But I say stand in your truth of your success, that you are that badass, that this show does not define me. And I will walk away if necessary. Now, I'm not even saying she said any of these things at all. Jenna's probably going to be on the show for 15 years. But the point is, I love to see it. We are in this. We do not. Arrogance is a problem, but we do not allow for our confidence to radiate. We just don't. And if she has cultivated everything she's cultivated, she has every right and prerogative to say, this show does not define me. So don't try to make it like I'm discovered on the basis of this show. She's living her best life. We love Jenna Lyons. And this has been another episode of hashtag Randomly with Ronnie Jr. I gotta go. I feel like I need a cigarette or something. I don't even smoke. Okay. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.